What is going on, everyone? A Tuesday show. This week has been crazy with the start of football season. I'm Wack, and joining me today to talk some Houston area football and heck, maybe even volleyball. We'll see how the show goes. We have Matt and Josh Cook, our Houston contributors. Let's start with Matt. Matt, how you doing today, man?
Man, I'm doing good. We're super busy with magazines getting ready to come out. Great weekend of football, volleyballs. You know, the crystal ball is kind of clearing up as it relates to who's really, really good in volleyball because we missed a lot last year. We were kind of going on who we think is going to be good, and now teams are really showing out. You know, kind of the crystal ball is coming clear to who is really going to come out of this area.
Josh, how about you, man? How you doing today?
I'm doing good, just like Matt, just super busy and stuff like that. I like Matt saying, you know, with volleyball, it's getting really interesting. You know, the Woodlands kind of came out of the gate super hot. They jumped out to a 20-0 record, kind of struggled this past weekend in their tournaments. Cy Ranch has continued to impress, jumping up to the number one spot in the state of Texas, and probably next week going to be our number one team in Houston, as they said, at 18-1. Barbers Hill owning the 5A level of volleyball as well. So volleyball picture getting more clear. I think football, we got a really clear picture of kind of who was really good this past weekend. Connor Wigman owned the weekend naturally with 8 touchdowns. So a lot of fun football to talk here in Houston.
Yeah, I mean, let's jump to football right now and let's talk about that. I want to talk about some of the games. Let's start with this. Some of the games that maybe impressed you the most, surprised you the most. I mean, there's tons of games. We can talk all day about all the games, but what were some of those games that really stood out to you this week? Josh, let's jump right back to you. What were some of those games this week for you?
The Crosby-Carthage game was a fun game just because this was two teams that made it to state last year. Of course, Carthage won its second straight state championship, its 8th overall. Crosby was coming off a state finals appearance, ends up coming down to essentially a kickoff return for a touchdown, ends up being the difference for Crosby to lose that game by 3 points. It was a great game to open the season. You know, and then Bridgeland was just a machine. I had questions coming into the year. Did Connor Wigman have enough weapons on offense? I mean, then I learned on Saturday, the nation learned on Saturday, that Connor Wigman is the weapon on offense. He can run the ball. He can catch the ball for touchdowns. He can throw the ball for touchdowns. So Bridgeland looked really, really good. I think the one game that kind of surprised me a little bit, not surprised me, but just the play was Lamar Consolidated coming out with the win over Foster, 21-14. Great play by their quarterback, Garrett. Came out, passed for over 200 yards, I think 3 touchdowns in that game. A big win for Lamar Consolidated over the weekend. So that was kind of my takeaways from this past weekend.
Matt, how about you? Let's jump to you right now. What were some of your takeaways from this past weekend of high school football, week 1?
Ridge Point really looks for real. They kind of picked up where they left off last year. They won handedly over Pearland. And then you've got Dickinson, who played Manville. Manville's really, really good. It's a 5A team. Of course, Dickinson, a 6A team. Dickinson just gets by Manville in a great game. Now those two teams, Dickinson and Ridge Point, I believe, play each other this week. So that's going to be a wild game of two really, really talented powers that could meet again possibly in the Region 3, you know, semis, finals, potentially. They're really good. My bottom 5 completely changed as it relates to rankings. You know, you've got Klein Oak had a great game. Klein Oak won big. I think this Hatter kid, a quarterback, could be something special. Tomball, they beat Willis. They moved into the top 20. Clear Falls had a big win. They're number 18. George Ranch did too. Cinco Ranch beat College Park. College Park had a breakout season last year. They went on the road, Cinco did, and won. Cinco's been down a couple years, so watch out for the Cougs. So that's kind of my, you know, vibe on who really made some noise early on.
And just real quick on the private schools. Now, Josh, I do believe you called this in our Pick'em show on Friday, but Kincaid beats the previously number 1 ranked Second Baptist for the Houston rankings in a close 21-14 contest. Josh, talk to me about that game. I know you expected this, but was this a complete shock for everyone?
I mean, I don't think it's a complete shock. I mean, Kincaid comes in with the talent that they have with Dylan Belt, wide receiver, who's going to Georgia, and you got his brother as well. They won 21-14. I thought Kincaid was going to score maybe a little bit more. I tuned into that game in the second quarter and was scoreless, so I was a little surprised at that point. But Second Baptist really played well against Kincaid to contain the Bell Bros on that side. Second Baptist falls in my ranking this week, I think, down to 3. You lose to the second team, I'm not going to drop you completely out of the top 5. A team that impressed me was Fort Bend Christian Academy. Came out against Bowling and just absolutely hammered them. Brady Dever passed for 450 yards. So that Fort Bend Christian Academy offense looks to be rolling here early in the season. Of course, Fort Bend Christian Academy in the same district as Second Baptist School. They'll play each other at the end of the regular season for what we're predicting to be the district championship. The other private school that impressed me was TWCA. Man, they hung it on Legacy Prep over the weekend, 62-13. Woodlands Christian Academy looking really good. St. Thomas came out and looked good. They get a win against Class 4A Needville, 35-28. They break in a new quarterback. I think it's Jack Wright is the name of the quarterback. He had a really good game over the weekend. So, that's my thoughts on private school. Not too much shakeup, but, number one team is Kincaid. They take over the number one spot in the private school realm this week.
Yeah, definitely saw that happening with the move, and you're right on the Woodlands Christian front. Let's talk about some players now. Matt, I want to jump to you. I know you're the man when it comes to who's hot and who's not. We all know Connor Wegman. He balled out. We kind of expected that. Were there any athletes out there that really kind of jumped out at you this past week for the week 1 of high school football in Houston?
Yeah, Langham Creek's Jaquez Petaway. This guy can play. He's an inside receiver, just a junior, but he gave the Woodlands all they could handle in a heartbreaking 48-42 loss. This guy can catch anything. He's super physical, so watch out for him. He's like a top 4 national recruit for next year. This guy's really good. The quarterback there is also really good. He was banged up early, but he kind of made his way and did really well throwing the ball deep. He's got a great deep ball. Mabry Matower, I've been high on this guy from the Woodlands. He had 4 touchdowns, 3 passing, 1 rushing. He had a really good, first start in his sophomore season. He's a 6'6" quarterback from the Woodlands. Now they play Lamar this week. However, they meet up with Bridgeland, which is going to be wild up at the bank in the Woodlands in 2 weeks. In 3 weeks, they play Katy. So you talk about a bloodbath of a non-district schedule. They have just 6 teams in their district, so they should win their district. But Matower looked good to me as well. Quentin Curtis at Klein. He had 160 yards rushing for Klein. Had a really good game. They're going to need him to sneak into the playoffs as maybe a 3rd, 4th seed or the Bearcats, but they're trying to bring the respect back to Klein.
Now, Matt, do you think this is going to be beneficial to Woodlands? I know the quarterback, he's still young overall. Scheduling these tough opponents early on, do you think it's going to pay off in the long run for the Woodlands?
I think it will pay off in the long run because their district's kind of weak. So they're going to pretty much run through district, and then they're going to be more prepared when they do play and they have to go Region 2 in the playoffs. They're going to meet some tough teams. But Katie's going to be a wild one at Legacy. The Woodlands always plays Katy really well, so we'll see. But their defense is what has got to come together. Their defense is good. Martrell Harris, the linebacker there, looks like a man among boys out there, just physically, and he did a really good job, but they just have some things they've got to do in the defensive backfield to kind of get shored up. Fort Bend Marshall, their whole team is awesome. Like, they don't have a lot of players, but Chris Marshall flexed hard this week, had a great game. But their whole team looks really good.
Yeah, and what's funny about that Fort Bend Marshall game is they really ran through the gamut of emotions as a football team, right? Got up to a big lead, they let them come back, and then they got up to a big lead again. So they really faced not only blowing a team out, but then facing the adversity of a team coming back and then just blowing them out again. So that team definitely impressed me.
Yeah.
Josh, how about yourself? Any players? I think you were at 2 or 3 games this past week. You were a man on a mission this week. What were some players that stood out to you this past week for maybe some of the games you were at, or just some of the games you saw, read about or saw for highlights from?
Yeah, Matt's talking about the Fort Bend Marshall game. He mentions Chris Marshall, and the guy for me is really Jacoby Banks, the quarterback for Fort Bend Marshall. I mean, he's not the biggest dude in the world. He's about 5'9", 5'10". He's got some wiggle, man. He can go. He can throw the ball. He gets an offer from Texas A&M the next day after his opening game of his junior season. I mean, you do something right if you got Jimbo calling the next day going, hey, by the way, I want you in College Station. So Jacoby Banks is a guy to watch. I mean, Chris Marshall is a walking highlight reel. Let's just be honest about it. He's a freak of nature. Another guy, and I know Matt likes this guy, Derek Lagway from Willis High School, class of 2024. This dude is a man amongst boys. They played tomball, which was going to be a tall task for Willis. They fall short by 13 points, but Derek Lagway had a game. He rushed 16 times for 227 yards, went 6 of 11 for 41 yards. He's a big dude, and he's already got offers from U of H, Georgia Tech, Baylor, and Texas A&M heading in to his junior season. Or no, I'm sorry, not his junior seaon. Class of 2024 sophomore season?
Right now, yeah.
Good gracious, he's a sophomore?
It could be kind of cool to see Lagway and Mattower play against each other for the next couple of years, kind of battling
That's a game.
For supremacy.
Circle that one, Matt. Mattower and Lagway. That's the game later this season because they're in the same district. Other guys, PJ Hatter, we talked about him. He really balled out. I'm really excited to see Klein Oak against Spring this week.
Yeah.
Because, everybody's really betting on Spring, which I even picked Spring in this game. I think Klein Oak's going to push them. I think this is a really good Klein Oak team. I think PJ Hatter is ready to go out there and kind of put on a show, and Klein Oak show what they've got against Bishop Davenport and that Spring Lion team later this week. Other guys, I mean, we talked about, Connor Wigman and those dudes like that. I'm trying to think who else had big games.
Had a pretty solid game for Ridgepoint. I was really surprised that they just pounded Pearland.
Yeah, Bert Sessions was another guy had a big game. The running back Ezel Jolly, who just got offered by Colorado recently, he had a big game. I agree with what you said earlier. Man, Ridgepoint looks completely put together right now. I think Dennis Silva, the second yesterday on one of our shows, he was talking about how he feels like Ridgepoint looks like they're in week 5 or 6 already and not a week 1 football team. And I agree with him. I mean, they look like a machine. The question is, how far can they go, and can they get deep enough in the playoffs and get through a potential North Shore waiting for them in round 3?
So I know you talked about spring coming up and stuff like that. Let's move to this week. Matt, Josh, I'll kind of turn it over to whoever wants to go first. What are some of the games you're going to, and what are some of the games people need to tune into this week?
Well, for me, the current plan is to go to Spring versus Klein Oak on Thursday night at Planet Ford Stadium in Spring. That's just going to be a fun game between those two teams, two good quarterbacks on both sides. A game that's not in the area that's an interesting one is Atascocita goes up to Allen for a second straight year. Of course, Allen kind of laid it on Atascocita last year. But I made a bold pick, man. I don't know if you haven't seen it yet. I made a bold pick yesterday that Atascocita will go and beat the Allen Eagles this year and make a statement to the state of Texas that they are here. They handled Klein Collins last week, beat them like 48-7. I think Gavin Session and company are going to go up there. Keith Wheeler the second. They've got a good offensive line anchored by 5-star Cam Dewberry. I know it's going up to Allen. I know it's taking on the big bad Allen Eagles, but I am flying with the Eagles this week of Atascocita to get that big win up in DFW. Thoughts?
Oh my God. Where was this going to be shown, honestly? Allen, here's the thing with the Atascocita. I saw them in their scrimmage against the Woodlands, and the Woodlands handled them pretty well. It's their defense that's kind of the weakness. They could put points up, but I think they're not going to be able to stop Allen on defense. That's the problem. They're not going to be able to continue that, go neck and neck with Allen offensively. So I don't pick Atascocita there. Another game I do like is, mentioning earlier that Ridge Point Dickinson game. There's some dudes on both of those teams. You've got two players for Dickinson who are already A&M commits. Donovan Green's the number one tight end in the country. P.J. Williams, great offensive lineman. He's going to Texas A&M as well, facing what we think is a team, like Silva said, is a team that looks like they're in week 5. Here's why. They're senior heavy, and this is their year. I spoke to them going into the game at their team dinner, and they're a fun group, but they seem like a really mature group, and they kind of police their own. If somebody gets out of line, they have a lot of senior leadership on that team. I'm excited to see where they go, but that's going to be a heck of a game. Dickinson, Ridge Point. I'm going Ridge Point. Just because of Emmanuel at quarterback. It's kind of cool. If we look at Houston, look at the quarterbacks that are kind of very under-recruited, and that's Bert Emanuel Jr. at Ridge Point. You've got Bishop Davenport, who we both love, at Spring. He's going to Utah State. And then you've got the quarterback Cardell Williams over at Westfield. He's going to Tulsa. Then you've got, the Fort Bend Marshall quarterback who's just kind of getting some juice as a quarterback. The leader of the clubhouse, of course, is Wigman. You got Matower, Lagway. H-Town is turning into QB Houston. Just feel free to use that term now.
I'm pretty sure you put that in an article last year. I think you did.
There's so many quarterbacks around here right now that are really, really good.
Yeah, and last year, you're talking about QBs in the city. I mean, Wigman was an Elite 11 quarterback. He went up there for the finals. Last year, you had Maddox Kopp go up for the finals. You had Demetrius Davis go up for the finals. You had Kyron Jones go up for the finals. Yeah, I mean, the quarterback play in Houston is really impressive across the board. And we're seeing these guys emerge like a PJ Hatter that's going to emerge. There's going to be guys that are going to step up this season that we're going to be like, oh, wow, this guy can, this dude can really sling it. And I think what we're seeing even more now is these guys are coming into high school even more polished, where you do have a sophomore quarterback like a Mabry Matower who's going to go out and play well. You're going to have a guy like Derek Lagway. They're going to make sophomore mistakes because they're still young in the system. But we talked about this in the offseason. We've seen going and betting on a sophomore quarterback at a young age and carrying them over as a 3-year starter and how that pays off for teams. And the biggest example is North Shore. Demetrius Davis started as a freshman in the playoffs. They win state his sophomore year. They win state his junior year. And they're state semifinalists his senior year. And you can just see how much that pays off if you have a dude that young to get him in there and get that varsity experience.
Here's a name that people are going to start talking about. Quarterback. Just a freshman. He will be the starter within weeks at Pearland. You know the name Pep Hamilton, with the NFL pedigree? His son is a freshman at Pearland, Jackson Hamilton, who came in relief in their loss against Ridge Point. Just think about that. Pep Hamilton's son playing against Bert Emanuel's son, both NFL pedigree in the same game. One's a freshman, one's a senior, passing the baton. Boom. Hollywood story right there.
Well, look, guys, lots of action in Houston coming up, and I'll let you close out some thoughts on the Houston area. But I would be remiss if I did not bring up and let you two discuss the craziness, and I'm sure you've heard of it by now, that is Bishop Sycamore and that whole fiasco. A team that really, it's just a team of basically postgraduate high school students They played 2 games within 48 hours, one being against IMG. What is this, guys? Matt, I want to come to you. What is this craziness that is Bishop Sycamore?
It's kind of weird because here's the first thing. Duncanville does not play well, and they've gotten beat a couple times by Mater Dei. And they're playing these. Was it Mater Dei? Yeah.
So Mater Dei, and then last year was IMG.
Right. People don't realize that these are super teams that are being built from the state of California and the nation for IMG. Duncanville is a local neighborhood team. So people are like, oh man, what's wrong with Texas football? Well, that's what's wrong, because you've got a neighborhood team playing against a regional or national team. This Sycamore thing is the problem. It's basically an AAU prep team for basketball playing against high school people. It's so stupid. I mean, come on.
How did ESPN get duped like this, though? That's my question.
It's easy, man. You got so many people that are hype men. You get these people around programs, and it's just a hype thing. But there's nobody in the games. This is not traditional high school football. Nothing is traditional about sports anymore, especially football, college football, high school football. It's all going to crap. Can I say that? I can say that. But there's no bands. There's no community. There's nothing. It's mercenaries going out there. It's like, hey, man, let's just get together, roll the ball out, and let's play some football. Oh, by the way, we're prep kids. We're not even high school kids. It's stupid.
It's like it's like how – I mean, first off, the Twitter – if you have like 10 minutes to roll through Twitter, the memes and making fun of this Bishop Sycamore team is hilarious. It's just one of those things that like I'm like still like befuddled that someone at ESPN didn't go, hey, they don't really have a roster. We can't find any of these guys. Why are they on national TV? And now what's going to happen is you're going to have all these jokers across the country going, hey, we're going to create Matt Malatesta University that has 5 big 5-star guys. We're going to reach out to ESPN and we're going to play a game. Like, come on. Like, ESPN is better than that. And also ESPN, how is there only one Texas high school football game in the Geico National Showcase thing? How? How are there more like Florida and California? And then if Bishop Sycamore is getting a game, come on. Give me like Spring Klein Oak. Do your research, ESPN. Be better.
And that is – it's all based on research because, like, they could really probably change the Bridgeland game and Klein Kane, knowing that Jaden Blue is not going to be playing this year. It's probably too late to do that. They want to get. Well,
Wigman. I mean, Connor Wigman's a national recruit. I'm not saying that they should have changed that game. I'm just saying I think Texas should have had like another game. Like I think Highland Park. Maybe they did have another game. Highland Park and
South Lake Carroll.
South Lake Carroll was an ESPN game, so that's 2.
Yeah.
But I mean, Wigman. He deserved the national TV. I mean, it's just unfortunate for Klein Kane. They were on the back end of that performance.
Let's talk about Wigman for a second. We're going to hear this name all year. This guy is so good. He's so fast. So he runs away from defensive backs that have angles on him. And he's got he's got all the arm angles. You mentioned it earlier when we were talking offline, but he is somewhat Mahomes-ish because he's got that baseball background, but his sports IQ in general, some people just have sports IQ. It's off the charts. Now, granted, he can't do it by himself. He does have some pieces. They're going to have to make some stops deep into the playoffs. But this guy is really special, and we need to not get fatigue. You know what I mean? Sometimes we'll get like Katie fatigue. We're going to get Connor Wigman fatigue. But this cat is going to be great in college and beyond. I'm going to leave you with this. I saw Andrew Luck as a freshman. And Andrew, as a freshman, he was at 7-on-7. And I'm looking at this green team with shirts, and it looked like a cross-country team. I'm like, what are these nerds doing out here? And they're blowing through the bracket. And I'm like, what the heck? And I see this little scrawny guy, cross-country looking guy. The ball's just going pow, pow, pow. Just, he sees the field. He's just making everybody look dumb. And I'm like, I walk up, I'm like, who is that? And they're like, dude, it's Andrew Luck. Not Andrew Luck. Yeah, Andrew Luck. And I knew Oliver Luck dating back because I'm really old. And I'm like, yeah, Oliver Luck's son. And you could just see how big time this guy was going to be. And he played multiple sports also, basketball. This is the same thing that's happening. I'm not saying he's going to be Andrew Luck, but I'm saying he could be.
Yeah, I mean, that was when we were talking the other day, that was I was like, who does he remind me of? And when he drops back, the way he throws, I was like, he feels like maybe a little bit more athletic Andrew Luck. I mean, I don't remember I didn't see Andrew Luck play in high school, so I don't know how much he ran the ball. I just know in the National Football League, Andrew Luck did not run the ball very much. He would just sit back there and throw. But, Wigman's release is so quick. If you get back there as a defender, you have to get your hands up quick. You have to be very fast to get to him. He does have a Patrick Mahomes kind of wrist flick to him that he can kind of zip that ball. I mean, it looks effortless. Him throwing the ball down the field. I mean, I think right now as it stands, Connor Wigman is the number one quarterback in the city of Houston. Hands down, no argument.
No. He's better than Quinn Ewers. I'm telling you, long term, this guy's better than Ewers. No doubt.
He's going to be hitting the A&M.
He's smarter. He's a smarter, less risk taker, knows when to take risks, great IQ, bigger, faster. I mean, you name it. This guy can play. Josh Dubb, here's the game to watch. LSU, UCLA in the Rose Bowl. I'll be sitting right on the 50-yard line with 75 people in the Rose Bowl because everybody's crying about not going out to the Rose Bowl. I don't know if you saw the game against Hawaii.
Here's what we need you to do. Here's what we need you to do.
They were playing Hawaii.
We need you to get a giant poster and write Vype on it, okay? Because you're gonna be in the 50-yard line. Just hold it up the whole game. Vype. You're gonna get on TV, and there you go. That's what you need to do.
Just put our Twitter handle. Follow at Vype Houston. Just like that.
Okay, $50. If y'all put your money together, I'm hopping the fence. I'm running to midfield.
I don't need you arrested.
Topless. Boom, let's go.
We have too much stuff to do, Matt. You can't get arrested in California.
Yeah, that's not looking good. Matt Malatesta, Chief Content Officer of Vype, arrested. We don't need that in the newspapers there, Matt.
I'm really more scared of my wife than the cops if I were able to do that.
That's a smart statement right there.
She would probably get to you before security would get to you.
Exactly. She would tackle me. I'd blow my ACLs out. So.
Well, here we go, Matt. Let's put you on the spot here. Is LSU going to have a better season this year than they did last year?
Oh, 100%. I think the chemistry's way better. The coaching's going to be way better. They got some young coaches that are kind of unproven, but I think they're going to be way better. They got a good quarterback room. They have a tough schedule, of course, but they weren't bad at the end of the year. I'm telling you, quarterback Johnson is going to be so good. I'm fired up from him. So.
And then how about you, Josh? We know Tech is taking on Houston this week. What do you think of the Red Raiders this year?
I'm hopeful. I do like that new quarterback we got in. I think he came from Michigan State. I think Sue or Sal, however you say his name. He's there. U of H is going to be interesting. I think Texas Tech still wins the game because I think Texas Tech just has more weapons. But U of H is an interesting team this year because really last year, because of all the COVID stuff, we didn't really get to see U of H play that much. They were getting canceled all the time. Has Clayton Tune taken that next step to be big QB1 for them? You got a guy like the former Westfield runner and track guy who was actually at Texas Tech and came back to Houston. Oh my gosh, Matt, what's his name? The running back, the 100-meter dash guy.
Well, I can tell you, Keyshawn Carter.
Keyshawn Carter, that's it. Yeah, Keyshawn Carter.
Woodlands, and he was our player of the year because he was amazing in 3 sports. But he's a receiver, and Keyshawn Carter could be that kind of explosive guy that Dana Holgorsen loves to use.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. There's some transplants from Texas Tech to U of H in the offseason.
Yeah.
I think Texas Tech, this is a big game for the Red Raiders to come into Houston, which is a big recruiting area for them. They got to get better about recruiting guys out of Houston. Klein's Mason Tharp is there. He came from here heading up to Tech last year. U of H, of course, has a bunch of dudes from the Houston area, including former St. Thomas quarterback Maddox Kopp. Don't know if we'll see him play any on Saturday. But, yeah, big game for the Red Raiders. I think Texas Tech wins. It'll be interesting to see how they navigate the Big 12 Conference this year. So I'll be in attendance of that game. I think it's the first game I'll be there as a fan since, like, my freshman year of college.
Oh, man.
Here's an idea. Josh, why don't you run onto the field with a sign? We'll do it simultaneously. We'll both get on ESPN as crazy fans.
And then we'll both be in jail together.
Perfect.
Yay!
And then, of course,
nobody's getting magazines.
And then, of course, my
At least
team,
it's a long weekend. It's a
Yeah.
long
My-
weekend.
Of course, my team, Texas, will play Louisiana, and the Steve Sarkisian area kicks off with a tough test. I mean, top 20 team, returning 20 of their starters from last year. They announced Hudson Card, the true freshman, as the starter, although Casey Thompson will get some playing time. Look, I'm not going to say Texas is going to –
Whack, you better prepare yourself emotionally because
I am.
I think Texas is going to lose that game. I think Louisiana's going to come up and punch them in the mouth.
I would not be surprised at all if Texas loses this game. I mean, they beat Iowa State last year. Like I said, they returned 20 starters from last year's squad. We're really going to see what Steve Sarkisian is made of in this first week. Yeah.
Where is that game at?
That one is at UT.
Okay. So here's my take. We had Hudson Card in our first ever Hill Country magazine on our cover. Dude, look, this guy can play. He's really good. I think this guy's going to be a star. I think UT wins, and Hudson Card is going to be awesome. Great leader, cool kid, looks like a quarterback. Same kind of. He's not that big. That's what concerns me a little bit because he cannot get out and run. But this guy is who that team is going to rally around, I believe. Great IQ for football, and I think he's going to be a star, and they're going to win.
Yeah, and I think Sarkisian was smart making him the starter. It seemed like it was a pretty close race, but when you have him as a freshman compared to Thompson as I think he's a junior, you want him because you can build off of him. So I think it's very smart. Before we get out of here, I just want to give you guys a chance. Any last words before we head out for today?
Well, I know we didn't get to volleyball, but Josh, let's go. Top 5. Who are your favorite volleyball teams in H-Town as of right now? And I'll tell you what. I'll go number 1.
Okay.
Seven Lakes.
Mm.
You know, I love them. I'm still on board.
They're struggling. They struggle out the gates. I think they came out the gates like 10-5, something like that. Struggling to get some hitters. I mean, they're still going to be there. I mean, they're going to still probably win the district or be second in the district behind Tompkins. I think Tompkins is playing okay. There's a lot of teams that are in that mix of like 10-8 coming out of the gate. There's some 9-8, 8-7.
A lot of games, and they've got a lot of tournaments where they play like other good teams.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Seven Lakes, while they kind of they're not going undefeated, but they're going to be there, and I like them a lot.
The teams I like a lot, Pearland Dawson had a big weekend. They beat the Woodlands for like the first time ever at that tournament. Dawson, I think, is like 25-3 on the year. Cy Ranch is playing really good. Biana Mionki, who's committed to Texas A&M, has been a star for them. Taylor Porter, who we featured as a next big thing, she has come out on fire. Second on the team in kills is Porter. So Cy Ranch, I mean, you know, the Cy Ranch a few years ago was really, really good. And then they kind of had a little dip there when Bridgeland opened, but now I think they're kind of coming back up out of that dip. Barbers Hill, I'll see them tonight over here in Kingwood at Kingwood Park. I'm excited to see them, what they're going to bring. I think they're a favorite to kind of maybe win 5A in the city of Houston. I think Fulshire is starting to put it together again. And then, I mentioned, Woodlands, Fulshire,
College
Cy
Park is
Ranch.
yeah.
Yeah, College Park's playing really
There's some
well.
nice
Pearland Dawson. Yep.
Madison Sisters over there. I don't know. Barbers Hill. They don't fire me up.
That's 17-1, 18-1.
Wait, I mean, look, me, you, and Josh W. could win some games that they're playing. I mean, we're good.
We're good. Hey, we could beat Bishop Sycamore.
Hey,
that's true.
Here's the thing. Remind me to talk about Maneki on another podcast. I got a great story about me and her dad played basketball against each other. He played Josh at University of Texas basketball.
Ooh.
He could hoop.
So her going to A&M is like against the family grain.
I was like, when she committed there, I was like, that's kind of weird. And she's got a brother also that's going to be a star too. So really cool family story there. Now we'll wait for next time.
we got to save something for the next show.
Yeah, college football, NFL, high school, everybody's fired up. I feel like, COVID is happening, but I think we're working around it. We know better what to be ready for. There was some COVID cases in that Woodlands game. You just gotta play. Everybody's got to play through it. So with that being said, hey, good show, Josh and Josh.
The JJM show. There you go.
Happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, and we'll have Dennis on as well when he can make it. So rotating every Tuesdays at 11. We'll have you guys on to talk some Houston area sports. Tomorrow, we got jam-packed tomorrow, 10 a.m., the Vype podcast. At noon, we got the St. Pius Coaches Show with Craig Cranfield. And at 6 o'clock, we have the Vype Coaches Corner with Coach Williams and Coach McDowell. Be sure to check those out. I'm excited for those two, all three of those shows. Will has an interview with Pearland safety and outside linebacker Dylan Dixon. So be looking out for that on the Vype podcast. Until then, guys, great show today, and we will be back next Tuesday for the Lunker Talk Live Houston show. Y'all have a great one. We will be around.
Yeah.